Okay, let's go. Maybe I should take this off. Set the recording on. Just go. Is this by any chance already online? I didn't press any go live buttons, but I'm assuming I'm live. If you're here and if you're hearing my voice, please say something in the chat. Karim, hey, thank you. I usually schedule my streams, so that gives me an extra button to press before I go live. But today, because I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of in a hurry here, so I thought that I still want to make some art. So I started a live stream without doing the scheduling. I just pressed stream from OBS, and now I'm here. And we're painting. We're putting down colors, and I have a tight deadline of, I think, around like 1 hour, 10-ish minutes. And then I need to pull the plug on this, like no matter if I have a painting done or not, that's the deadline. So I need to be super deliberate and just kind of slap down some colors and see like where they could land in this piece. I'm kind of liking this like overall tone. Because my last live stream had so like light colors, I thought that this would be fun to kind of go into a completely opposite direction and just have like super bright contrast in everything, just to kind of challenge myself a little bit and see where that takes me. Okay, I think I see the landscape after the sketch lines. I'm using the golden triangle composition guide again, but this time I'm doing it horizontally. So if you're ever struggling with composition, I recommend just like picking up like any of the composition grids and basing your composition based on that. Even if you're an experienced artist, it's always good to have some kind of like a frame to hold your composition together and remind you like what your lines are supposed to support. So I think that's a great way to put some kind of thought and structure behind the chaos. I like chaos, you know I do, but it's also good to have some kind of like a safety net, especially when I'm working so quickly. I think the biggest composition mistakes when it comes to speed paintings, and I would probably consider this as a speed paint, is contrast and composition issues. Luckily, both of those are usually very easy to fix in post. So what you want to be focusing on if you're doing a speed painting is the idea and the mood, because if you can get there, then like you have motivation to go through the maybe like slightly more boring task of fixing some of those errors. But if you just spend the entire time that you have allocated for your speed painting session to some kind of like mind-numbing details, then it's gonna be really difficult to find the motivation or a reason to go back and fix any of your mistakes. Because if you don't like the painting or you don't feel the vibe that it's supposed to be giving off, then why put any more hours or time into that? At some point you might just want to cut your losses and say that like, this was what it was, I'm now going to focus on something else. I don't know what this red color here is, but I just thought that it would be good to contrast the green with something from the opposite end of the color wheel. it's like a landscapey, hazy color. I'm just putting in some hue here so that I have something to build on top of. If I just have very flat colors underneath, the colors that I build on top will also be flat. So just building those layers and giving some depth. Here, the point of the diagonals is to lead people into this main line in the golden triangle. I'm gonna read the chat, but I want to be like super honest, like right in the beginning of this live stream, and let you guys know that like since I am working under a really tight deadline, trying to create some art in this like very short time limit, if the kind of live streams you enjoy is like one where the person doing the live stream is reading the chat and talking with everybody 100% of the way there, I am going to keep my eyes on this painting. So really quickly, I see a question. I've been having issues with starting a painting and getting frustrated and anxious that I quit 2 minutes into a painting. I also have issues with getting into the composition right when I speed paint. Well, Gio, is that your name? Yes. How long have you been painting? Like, do you have the skills to speed paint at all in the first place? Because I think that's really important for me to understand your question and answer it in a way that is beneficial to you. Because speed painting is not for everybody and for all like parts of the like creative journey. Like if you've been doing concept art for a while, then sure, I see a huge benefit in doing speed paintings when, for example, you're generating ideas and you want to have something to show in the next meeting if you are in the ideation phase. But if you are just starting out and you have been painting only like, let's say that you're a beginner and you have been painting 3 years. At that point, I probably wouldn't recommend doing any speed painting yet, because to paint fast, you need to paint slow first, and you just don't have the hours yet to do the fast painting. I've been painting for almost 10 years. Okay, so you're good to go for speed painting. It didn't mean to like diminish your skills. I just want to know like what kind of a person I'm talking to here so that I can be helpful. I hope that you understand. So, okay, so are you making speed paintings just to do like a complete painting in that case? I think if you have a tight deadline, like I have right here as I'm doing this, it's really easy to finish the whole thing, because if you are committed to doing the thing, then you have the deadline, and it's basically like forcing you to finish the piece. There's no easy way out of that. So I think time limits are really good. One exercise that I could recommend is the imagination interval training. I think I have a video where I have described that exact process on how to do that. So in imagination interval training, you do really like insanely fast speed paintings in a short amount of time. And those paintings, they are not just fast, but the time limit is decreasing with every single set. So it's almost like sets at the gym. You do one 20-minute painting, and then the time limit decreases into 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and so on, until you only have, I think 3 minutes is the shortest time in the end. And this feels like a really high stressful situation for anybody. Whenever I do this in art classes, people are like screaming in pain because they feel like it's so intense. But the benefit from that exercise is that if you do it consistently for a few days, on the third day, whenever I've been doing this exercise with like art classes, and I have been doing this a few times in the membership of this channel here as well. On the third day, I always feel like, okay, I'm ready for it to hurt. Basically, I'm ready to fail, because I know that in a session you end up doing so many ideas in that small amount of time. I know that I am going to have bad ideas. And if I just pick myself up and keep painting through the different sessions, in the end, I will still have tons of good ideas that are fully usable. You won't be doing a perfect painting in any of the intervals, but you will have enough time to generate ideas that you can care about enough to do like a finished illustration on. Whenever an idea comes to you and you feel like inspired by that idea, I think it's important to keep this like certain level of humility in the creative process, because just because you have an idea, even a great idea, that really doesn't matter, I'm afraid to say, that much in the bigger picture. You still have to make it, and in the process you will understand that you are part of the process. You are not fully driving, you are just helping the idea to become actually real, because while it's in your head, that is not the same thing as having a finished painting. That's not what you are gonna end up having in front of you when the painting is done. That's not how this works. Like when you start painting, like in the beginning you have to make this like even like weird pact with creativity that I am willing to show up and do the compromises necessary to have something to show this idea in some form to others. What you don't get though is that you don't get to depict that exact thing. Oh my god, I painted on the wrong layer. You don't get to depict that exact thing in your head in your finished illustration. The process itself is going to take something out of it, and it's going to mold that idea. And it's not a bad thing. It could mold it into something better. But if it doesn't end up looking like the idea that you had in your head doesn't map those ideas into 2D canvas. Your mind doesn't take into consideration like all the millions of like small decisions that go into doing an actual finished painting. Like it might feel like I can see it so clearly, but I've been doing this long enough that like no matter how strong that feeling is, it's kind of an illusion. Like you might feel like you see that idea, but it's not exactly that. So when you show up like willing to kind of like work with the process and those like letting those small decisions like mold the process and maybe sometimes even change the course in some ways, then you can enjoy the process a lot more and stop having this sort of like completely understandable. I'm not saying that like you're in any way like wrong in having those emotions and frustrations. Everybody goes through those. I go through those emotions, but it's completely natural to have this almost like a childish temper tantrum that like this is not what I wanted. It's no, like the art process will always humble you in reminding you that like this is not just about you, it's about more than you, and it can be better than you imagined if you let it kind of like live its own life in the process. I know that this might sound harsh, but like I'm really not trying to insult you, I'm trying to help you, and I assure you that like I go through this process like constantly in my art, so I'm in no way trying to say that I'm somehow above this. But I am now more conscious that like when I hear my brain kind of like talking back to my creativity or being negative about it, okay, how are we doing on time? I need to actually see the clock so that I don't go past my time limit. Okay, what am I doing? So landscape, foreground, background. I think this cliff face could have some kind of like a diagonal line to emphasize that golden triangle element here. Just give it a little bit of like vertical shape to go along that diagonal. I'm gonna talk about more on this golden triangle composition and things that kind of make it easier to use. I'm using my Fresco brush from the Angry Mikko Oils collection. This is currently downloadable for all members. You can get all of the brushes in that set if you're a member. So it's good for this sort of like quick stuff when I can just mix the color on canvas on the go. Okay, that's it. I really don't like the shape of this mountain range, so I'm just gonna pull that up a little bit. Actually, I'm gonna pull up all of those layers at once. This also gives those random brush strokes kind of that unification, that they're all kind of going into the same direction, just because this warp is bending them that way. Okay, now I'm gonna give this layer mask and then do like a random edge of the mountain selection. Selection tool is really good for mountains because it's really hard to do like precise movements with it. And I'm gonna pull black color on this layer mask to hide it and see how that looks. Okay, it's like organic. I don't have time to be fussy about these sort of things, so I'm just gonna let it be. In fact, another mountain behind that would be good. I see that the chat is running. I'm gonna go through quickly. Oh my god, there was water in this. Okay, I'm just gonna be a bit t-shirt for the rest of this. Hello, Cruisix Art, Tio. Tio, I think getting committed to the time limit is a good way, that like, because then it's, at least in my personal experience, there's water on my This is so much chaos. Like, maybe it's like too much chaos, and I don't mean the painting. I mean this entire situation. Like, maybe I have like bitten more than I can chew with this time limit. Like, especially considering how damn ambitious the entire painting idea is. But who cares? I'm gonna go for it. What was the color that I was supposed to drop here? This one. Yes. Oh, that mountain edge does not look good. Yikes. and I just flatten it a little bit. That's actually a lot better. Yep. By the way, a cool trick that you can use to create fake perspective is to go into freeform transform mode and then just do a fake perspective, like even on an organic mountain or a cloud shape. This will actually make it look like those shapes are getting smaller in the distance, because they are. Go into the lock layer, unlock it, and take. My sketch was so sloppy that it's not really doing me any favors at this point anymore. So I can just not have it, and nothing of importance will be lost. By the way, those sort of like line sketches you can easily do on your phone in the Procreate Pocket, or if you just have like a small sketchbook that is small enough to carry in your pocket. And if you don't like sketchbooks, I also love post-it notes, because I can think of them as just like trash. And it's much easier to just like ideate different kinds of composition ideas that way. Okay, can you see how those like lines that are going to the top right corner in this golden triangle, that they are aligning at that exact line? But here on the top, no, sorry, wrong layer. Here on the top, that part, the composition is not supposed to, in golden triangle, emphasize this line at all. Here I'm doing the best that I can to add these horizontal lines and low contrast to tell that like you don't need to be following that line anymore. Here the point is to travel the eye through here back into the composition. Same here on the top lower left corner. The point is not to direct the attention into the corner. The point is to have these sort of like visual stoppers, like, okay, go towards this direction, or like follow the trees up to that direction and continue looking at the painting. The point of like these golden triangle lines is not to lead the eye off the painting, it's to keep it inside there. And that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're using this composition guide. What is this layer? Trash. Let's trash it. Okay, maybe there should be some kind of like green stuff here as well. Can I do it? Let's try. Just following that same line. Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, 30, 40-ish minutes still. Those trees are now the biggest offenders, so I'm gonna stop avoiding the hard work and go there. Should I just get rid of them completely for now and see what I can do there? Okay. First of all, let's use those sort of like crazy brush strokes to create a proper background here. I'm just using a light touch on the brush, and that allows the color to mix with this, and it allows that kind of like gritty texture to show through in places. I'm just kind of like smearing and like making this area of the sky kind of dirty, and that is on purpose. And here on the lower half, I want to use those darker tones, maybe colder ones, so that I don't have to go too much in depth with those sort of like details in the foreground. Okay, now trees. Where are the trees here? It's gonna pick the darkest color that I have. I'm gonna lower the opacity of this golden triangle composition guide so that I see it, but like right now it's important that it's not affecting the way that I see the composition. Oh, it was actually green. Wow. Okay, so instead of like going away from green, I'm just gonna make it desaturated, because very often these sort of like green colors, they work in tree trunks in lower saturation, because I'm gonna have higher saturation on top of it. It's going to make this tree bark look like it's browner or even reddish, just because of like color contrast and the way that we perceive colors. It's a fun trick. By the way, I have you can steal this palette by screenshotting it here, but you can also, if you remember, I have put it in the member downloads folder, and also the previous live stream, that color palette that I really love. I'm gonna use that again, by the way. It's also there now. If you're not a member, you can go into the beginning of this live stream and then just screenshot those palettes from there. I would love to like show those to you right now, but I have to keep going. Maybe there could be some kind of like a bramble here. A dead tree that also has some kind of like growth on top of it. Okay, not my best branches ever, but you know. I hope that Gio, who was having trouble with paintings after the ugly beginning, can maybe see that like, okay, I have an ugly middle here, but I'm still kind of steamrolling ahead, trying to just get it done, basically. I'm just trying to get it done. So that I can see what I'm actually making here, I'm gonna do a brown gradient as a clipping mask on top. And then behind these trees, I'm gonna add even darker color so that when light doesn't pass through the thickest part of this corner, this will be there. And I'm gonna just mix those colors together. That kind of like painterly aesthetic part of the way that the entire shapes are sculpted. Any tips for someone who is partially colorblind? I think there are great applications for kind of like highlighting those elements. Also, if you go into the palettes menu and you have your palette selected, you can do cards. So, for example, this, if you go into the cards tab, you can actually see in text form like what the colors are. So if you have trouble differentiating between two different colors, like then you can just color pick and check that from there. It's probably not too difficult to memorize, for example, that the reds are in certain part of the color wheel and the greens are on the other side, so that helps. But like if you're using palettes, I think that could be a great way. But also using palettes in a way where you, when you are generating your palettes, that you have like a consistent logic behind them. So for example, for me, I always start from the sky. I always put my light color on the top left corner, and then I have usually cloud colors, sky colors, and then I work my way like from backwards towards the foreground, so that I have highest contrast there. When I'm creating my palette, I don't know what the painting is going to be yet, but I know that the logic is always the same, that like I always end up with my high contrast colors in the bottom half, on the bottom row. Okay, I really don't like this, so even if I don't have that much time, I'm gonna do that from the beginning. I might regret this later. I might regret it already now. But I want this like brush texture to be kind of like part of the visual language of these foliage masses. Just have those sort of like wispy leaves that get sharper as we move towards the focal point of this piece. Right now I'm just like tapping the screen, like it's a scumbling technique that takes advantage of the brush texture, if you have a brush texture that you like. And on top I could add a little bit more of like shape and form. Again, since I'm not colorblind myself, like that's all that I can like say based on what I know on how this program works. But I know that there are also like online applications that colorblind people have told me about, but those exist. So I'm sure that like some artists who are colorblind would be better suited to help with this. I've also had concept art students in my classes that are colorblind, and in my experience it didn't like reduce the quality of their work at all. They were just really self-conscious about it, and I just tried to kind of guide them towards the styles that came naturally to them, where the way that color was used was kind of like enhanced by the way that they are seeing them. So it's not something that you maybe should be like concerned that much about, honestly. Even if you're going for like naturalistic paintings, your paintings can still have like a sense of realism just from the values and the saturation ranges that you create. Charles Twisted is saying, "Hello Mikko, thank you so much for all the lovely art help." Thank you, Charles. Thank you for being here. This is a good color, but the value is not right. That's more like it. I really want to have that like pretty texture of not the grain of the brush, but the source of the brush shape. So it almost looks like it's dry brushed on top of like with glaze. How is everybody doing today? Are you painting? Does anybody like carry like a tiny sketchbook with you? That's what I wanna know. Because I've been working on this video script where that is kind of one of the ideas on how I can get people with busy lives to like find more time for their creativity and creative projects. But I know that I'm kind of like a special person in that case, that I have no trouble carrying the entire iPad with me to absolutely everywhere. The full-sized iPad, because I don't have the small one. Like, to me, like just having it with me it is not that big of a nuisance. I was the kind of kid who had like pretty much all of my possessions with me wherever we went, because when I was a small child, my father could have like a business call at any point on like long car rides, and then we would just like could stop at the side of a road sometimes for over an hour while he was on a call. So I would have all of my sketchbooks with me, or of course my Game Boy Color, which I used a lot as well. But basically I was the kind of kid who had like tons of books, tons of games, all of my art supplies always with me in a bag. Like it didn't matter like where we were going. So now as an adult, I really don't have an issue with carrying my entire iPad with me. It might seem crazy to some people, and for that reason I don't think it's like a fair ask to tell people that like, yeah, just carry your iPad with you everywhere. But I do also sometimes have like small art supplies that I have with me, like for example those post-it notes. And the only sketchbooks that I actually do use are just like ridiculously tiny. I'm just trying to scan the table if I see any of them here. But they're so small that they literally fit into my pocket. And I think they are perfect for kind of like generating ideas on the go. And when I was working full time, I was still able to do like 200 art pieces in a year, in between those sort of like tiny slots. For example, during lunch hour, when I was like waiting in a queue to get my order, I would like always pull out my sketching equipment. And in that case, it was my full iPad, but I could have just as easily like pulled out my tiny sketching gear as well. Okay, where is the grass? I think I'm gonna put the grass here. Just like slap in like a base color and start from those curves. dark color tones in the background first. Add a little bit of hue variety by using colors that are the same value but different hue. And then using these variations to kind of bring that grass forward. Again, I'm just using the texture of this brush. If it's close enough, people will make those details in their head. And I think the way that people can kind of like make those details in their head is probably better than what I even could paint if I had an endless amount of time. So I'm using that texture to kind of like hint at an edge of this shadow. And then just like in the very foreground, I am doing some articulation of that meadow. I did the same thing for here. Kind of vignette the entire picture plane. When I can see the branches in isolation like this, it's a little bit easier to make the shapes make sense. Imagine if I had multiple brushes, what a mess that would be. It's just like go through them all the time and select different tools for everything. I mean, like, I usually don't have time for that, and it's not something that I can recommend when you want to have things done quickly and have a consistent style. Yeah, I can't spend my entire week there. I'm just gonna need to go through these simple elements quickly and kind of keep the forward momentum. That's what I like about time limits, is that like you don't have that problem of like stopping too long for decisions, because a lot of the decisions aren't by themselves that important. Like every element of a painting is kind of like a combination of like different elements in the piece working together. So when you're making that piece, I think it helps a lot to know that if it doesn't work, you can just compensate it with other elements in the piece as well. It's not that one element that is going to be doing all of the heavy lifting on its own. It's all of those things that are making your painting be what it is. I think I would have like some kind of like a deadlock here, but maybe in the background behind here. And I'm gonna add like a gradient shadow to it. Okay. How am I doing on time? I think I have like 15 minutes plus still to work here. So it's not super tight, but it's like kind of tight. Sylvinga is saying, I carry a small square sketchbook in my handbag all the time, together with erasable pens and mechanical pencil. When it's extremely boring at work, I pull that one out, or I play Pokemon Go. I approve of both activities. I'm kind of super addicted to the Pokemon trading card game on iPhone currently. I'm not super into card games of any kind on any platform, but I always felt like I'm missing out because I don't get to see like all of the cool artwork in those cards, because I don't collect Pokemon cards. But I think this has been like the perfect way for me to appreciate the art in the cards, not put any money into it. And it's this like interesting, delightful surprise every time when I wake up and see what my cards of the day are. And I love that new trading feature, by the way. It just makes the trading super easy for people like me who don't know a ton of people who have or collect Pokemon cards. Okay, I think I still need some grass in the foreground to make these stones sink in, because they look like they are just floating on top of everything. So I'm just gonna do that on the bottom halves here. And at this point, I'm like really conscious of the time limit. So I'm making sure that I am putting the effort into elements that actually matter. Okay. This is the old foliage. I'm so glad that I made it from scratch. Is there any use for this anymore? Maybe not. But if I just like do one of these, because it's a cheap recycling element, and if there's one thing that you probably know about me is that like I love a cheap recycle in art in any form, always. Okay, I reached my limit with the layers. So I'm just gonna crunch elements together. Layer limits are really bad for when you're doing any kind of a speed painting, because you don't want to deal with the logistics part of painting when you're just trying to get your idea across. So I recommend if you have trouble estimating on how many layers you need, or you're not experienced with layer management on the fly, then to have like a lower resolution. If the idea is good, you can always blow it up later and go through the details with sharper brushes. It's not gonna look low resolution, but for idea generation, you don't want to be hitting that layer cap all the time. Okay, I think the 3-hole situation is not that big of a disaster anymore. I'm gonna use this thing that I just made and maybe try to see if I can get a little bit more mileage out of it. To add a bit more texture. I think that's good. Okay, one thing that has been bothering me is like this ridiculous looking area right here. So I'm gonna do my best to fix that. Hello, how's your day going? Devin is asking. It's going really fast currently. We are now 52 minutes into this painting, and I think there's like hope. There's clearly some hope that I might be able to pull this together. Not like a ton of hope, mind you, but a little bit. Remember, the edge of the painting is supposed to say that like return to the painting for the viewer. That is the purpose of the edge of the painting in almost every painting. Thank you, Crucix Art. And sorry if I have missed some comment that you have made earlier. I'm gonna try to scroll quickly. Thank you, Devin. I appreciate you saying that. Right now, it just feels like I've been painting this so fast that I don't even have the time to evaluate, like, is it good or not? I think that's a lot better. I'm so glad that I made that scale. Okay, I'm gonna need to fix the edge of this weird moving hill over here. I mean, like this one, like I could easily just put eyes on it and it would be understandable as a character, but as a hill, I'm not buying it. And neither should you. Does that make more sense? Yes. Okay, I think this is the fog color that I had earlier, so I'm just gonna use the same fog color over and over. But not yet, I'm gonna do the trees first. Do I have time for trees? 7 minutes. I have time for really quick trees. Let's go paint faster. There's a small part of me that like feels like I should apologize for these super quick live streams that I've been doing lately, but I'm having so much fun with these that like I really don't want to. I'm sure I will be doing like longer live streams too, but this is so much fun, and I enjoy getting some art done. I've been doing so much like logistics work stuff recently, and with my previous art course finishing, that I just feel like this anxiety that I just need to be an artist and do some damn painting. I mean, like, it feels so fake that I'm here writing all of these like tutorials and giving feedback to students when I'm not doing any painting myself. I just feel like I need to do painting, otherwise I don't feel like myself. I know that these speeches aren't even, but there's only so much that I can do in this time. Minutes. Okay, that was like 1 minute forests on the hills, so I think that's pretty good forest to time commitment ratio. Let's do that. And right now we get the golden triangle thing. I'm just gonna remove it right now so that we can do these final details, which is the fog, for example. So I'm gonna pull this fog from behind in front of everything here. I'm gonna find a cooler tone for it because this is too green. I think that's good. Less saturation maybe. Okay, and for this fog, I'm gonna make some duplicates. One is going to be behind. I think that looks pretty nice. Let's get rid of that weird line over there. Also, what the hell are these? Okay. That is historical detail painting. I'm not really that person. Let's go back into the fog management. So this is fog on top. And for this fog, I'm talking out loud now, just basically trying to understand what I'm doing. So I'm gonna create a mask. And on this mask, I am painting not the back hill, but this hill shape formation into view. Yes. So these foreground elements, and then I'm using the texture. slowly make those elements recede. I'm gonna get to the background cloud still. I'm smashing through this. Okay, then the foreground fog, and this foreground fog is also going to have a layer mask. And for this, I'm just going to pull out the island element that is like right in front here. And then reduce the opacity of this even more, so that each one of these kind of like adds more and more of those like contrast washing elements in the distance. Where was that water surface? I think it's here. And this I'm gonna alpha lock. And just like lightly brush over this water area. I think the gradient should have some kind of a logic, so I'm gonna add more of that sky tone here. What is that weird shadow creeping into my painting from the left? Where did it come from? Please stop that right now. I don't want it. And I wish that you would remove yourself from this situation. Let's do a rock that is basically censoring my sloppiness. Okay, I'm really cannot be dealing with that. It's not that important. I'm just gonna say that it's not that important because I barely noticed it myself. But the clouds I do notice. The clouds are going to get fixed. I'm not going to not fix them. Okay. First I need a clean sky to work from. Like this is the last minute. Hey Nico, great to catch you. Just head out. The music isn't tucking your voice like it usually does. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just a heads up that I am going to really just pull the plug on this entire live stream when I'm done. And that is going to be in few minutes. So thank you everybody for showing up for this. I really appreciate all of you for coming. I'm gonna lower the music a little bit. Okay. Well, thanks for letting me know. I don't know what has happened to my Docker, but my apologies for that whole thing. I might just like put this entire live stream in the membership section quickly, so if it's too distracting. Don't these clouds look like a lot better now? gonna use the same brush for smudges. Thank you, Elma, for being here. I thought that since I'm making this video about making art when your busy life schedule really doesn't allow for it, I really should just like walk the walk and show how I do that actually in practice, so that I'm not just preaching like, hey, even if you're busy, you can still do work, but like, even if you have 1 hour, you can still do paintings like this, apparently, because that's what we have here. I really should be stopping now. Like, I am stopping. Mikko, nobody's going to see that there is a fancy skylight reflection in these things. Like, it really does not matter that much. Let go. I am unable to stop. I tried. I think there should be like a warm fringe color light to this, but at the very edge only. Cruzy's art is saying, I've been drawing as long as I have memory, but been a professional tattoo artist for the last 17 years and recently started to paint for myself more. So thank you for these streams. That sounds amazing. I cannot imagine the amount of pressure a tattoo artist must be under when they are like literally putting like permanent marks on someone's body that they will have to live with for the rest of their lives. I mean, just thinking about that scenario is giving me anxiety, so I respect that. Like, you are doing something way harder than I ever could. Maybe there should be like a corgi in the foreground, sure. I just feel like it would probably be a better painting with a corgi in it. Like, even if it's like a tiny one. So small you can barely see it. happy with it? I think I am. I see that some branches are missing, but it's okay. Okay, and that's the daily, guys. That's... how long was that? 1 hour 10 minutes. If you have any suggestions what this painting should be called, please leave a comment to this video, because I am pulling the plug right now and going offline. So thank you for joining this. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!